I know you. You're that jaywalking punk anarchist.
Hello, this is the Radical Reviewer, and welcome to The Puppy Corner! Now, whether you are a parent or a young pup yourself, you probably remember the talk. You know, parents sit their kids down, it's awkward, it's difficult, it's emotional. Oh, I'm not talking about the birds and the bees talk. I'm talking about the other talk. The police brutality talk. Let's talk about that today as we take a look at Something Happened in Our Town, a child's story about racial injustice. Written by Marianne Celano, Marietta Collins, and Ann Hazard. Illustrated by Jennifer Zivoin. Imagination Press, 2018. Let's take a look at this text. Something bad happened in our town. The news was on the TV, the radio, and the internet. The grown-ups didn't think the kids knew about it, but the kids in Mrs. Garcia's class heard some older kids talking about it, and they had questions. After school, Emma asked her mother, "Why did the police shoot that man?" "It was a mistake," said her mother. "I feel sad for the man and his family." "Yes, the police thought he had a gun," said her father. "It wasn't a mistake," said her sister Liz. "The cops shot him because he was black." Emma was confused. "He's brown, not black," she said. "Some black people have dark brown skin, and some have light brown skin," Emma's father explained. "Black usually means African American. Most of their ancestors were brought here from Africa as slaves." "I know what a slave is," said Emma. "That's when you have to do whatever the other person says." Yes, slaves had to do whatever white people told them to do. Even after slavery ended, white people didn't let black people live where they wanted, go to school with white people, or vote. Who are white people? White people came here from places in Europe, or Russia, or other countries. We are white, even though our skin is light tan. "Did our family do those bad things a long time ago?" asked Emma. "Yes," answered her mother. "Back then, many white people thought that they were better than black people, even though it wasn't true." Liz added, "Some white people still think most black men and boys are dangerous, even though they're not." "Was the man who got shot dangerous?" asked Emma. "No," her mother said. "Shooting him was a mistake. It was a mistake that is part of a pattern." "Like the pattern on my blanket?" Emma asked. "Yes, but this pattern is being nice to white people and mean to black people. It's an unfair pattern." "Suppose you had a birthday party and invited everyone in your class except the black kids," her mother said. "How would the black kids feel?" "They would be sad," Emma said, "or mad." "And you would be missing out, because you never know who's going to be your best friend," said Liz. "And you can help others to be fair," said her mother. "Like telling Anna to stop teasing Ling about her name?" asked Emma. Her mother gave her a hug. "Yes, just like that." In another house, Josh asked his mother, "Can police go to jail?" "Yes," said his mother. "Why do you ask?" "That white policeman who shot the black man," said Josh. "Will he go to jail?" "What he did was wrong," said his mother. "But he won't go to jail," said his father. "Why not?" asked Josh. "Cops stick up for each other," said Josh's brother Malcolm, "and they don't like black men." Josh was confused. "Why not? Some police are black." "You're right," said his mother. "Uncle James is a police officer, and so is my friend Kenya." "There are many cops, black and white, who make good choices," said his father. "But we can't always count on them to do what's right." Malcolm added, "I could get stopped by the police just because I'm black, even if I don't do anything wrong." "That's not fair," Josh said. "What if it was a white man in the car? Would the police have shot him?" "They probably wouldn't have even stopped the car," said his father. "Sometimes white people are treated better than black people," said his mother. "But it's not right. Everybody should be treated fairly." Josh's mother gave him a hug. "We're proud of who we are. Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King Jr., and Nelson Mandela were strong and brave black leaders. They showed us that we can stand up for our rights and set good examples for others. They were treated unfairly, but helped others learn to be more fair. Some people haven't learned yet, said his father angrily. Why are you mad? Asked Josh. I'm mad that we're still treated poorly sometimes, but I can use my anger to make things better, said his father. Black people have a lot of power if we work together to make changes. I have power, Josh said, and I'm smart. His father smiled. You're right. His mother added, and you can change people's hearts by sticking up for someone who is not treated fairly. Like how Malcolm sticks up for me when kids tease me about my glasses? Josh asked. He tells them to step off. Just like that, his parents said. The next day, a new kid joined Emma and Josh's class. His name was Ahmad, and he was from another country far away. Ahmad didn't know where to sit or what to do because it was his first day in school. He talked a little bit, but it was hard to understand him. He said he was learning English. After lunch, the class went outside to play soccer. Daniel and Sophia picked kids to be on their teams. All of the kids were picked to be on a team except Ahmad. Daniel said Ahmad probably didn't know how to play because he was new. Sophia said Ahmad might not be good at soccer. Josh remembered what his mother said about sticking up for people who are treated unfairly. Emma remembered what her mother said about unfair patterns and birthday parties. All of a sudden, Ahmad wasn't alone. Emma and Josh were leading him to their team. We have enough kids on our team, Daniel said. We don't need him. But Josh was ready. Step off, he said. He's playing. Yeah, said Emma. We don't want to miss out. And just like that, Emma and Josh gained a new friend and started a better pattern in their school. Wow, what an enlightening and kind story. As the inside sleeve of the book states, this book is designed to engage young children in a compelling story, as well as spark important discussions about racial injustice. In addition to modeling conversations about race, this book provides messages of acceptance, empowerment, and positive community support. And I believe it does just that, helping support parents in having the talk, as well as maybe helping kids express their confusions about injustice in our world. In addition to the story itself, well over half the text is dedicated to a Note to Parents and Caregivers section, which includes all kinds of wonderful tidbits, such as explaining where and how racial bias emerges within children themselves, and how to discuss your child's racial biases with them in a way that's impactful to them, and a child-friendly glossary section which defines terms like race and discrimination, as well as a list of white children's frequently asked questions, such as why do black boys always act out in class, or why do Jamal's parents have different skin color from each other, as well as frequently asked questions black children may have, such as why do white people hate us, or could I get shot by the police? And finally, a link to a website for further readings, recommendations, and resources. Really great stuff. This book is great for an elementary classroom, or daycare, or a library, or at home, or with anyone who would work with young children. Now, I've had this book picked out as the next Puppy Corner book for a while now. I forgot which of the many police murders inspired me to get the book in the first place. But I was of course reminded to go over it by the recent police murder of George Floyd, and the subsequent protests and riots that occurred thereafter. In fact, let's talk about that for a minute. First, this was an arrest for a suspected forgery, not anything lethal or high stakes. George Floyd was not resisting and could have easily been held in a squad car. Instead, the arresting officer pushed his knee into the back of Floyd's neck as he cried out for air for 4 minutes and continued pinning him for another 6 minutes as he became unresponsive. George Floyd was murdered by a police officer as other police officers stood around and watched it happen. The officer that committed the murder had a pretty sordid history. I'm sure you folks have seen this image floating around online, which explains, among other things, that the arresting officer had shot and killed several civilians and had several police brutality complaints against him. Really not the type of person you would want as a police officer. Unsurprisingly, as I'm sure you know, this murder triggered protests and rioting. And there's even been a lot of talk about agent provocateurs breaking store windows. Agent provocateurs meaning undercover police instigating situations that excuse further police crackdown, which is a police tactic with a long history. Police have also been seen arresting journalists and even shooting journalists with mace. It's a real mess.
The people in the neighborhood of Minneapolis, the poor black folk, they know their police force is racist as fuck. They know they're being kept under the boot of economic disenfranchisement. This isn't news to them. But to the rest of the world, what do you see? You look at Minneapolis now and you see it on fire. But this is only the spark being lit to a powder keg that's being stacked for decades now. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, if we're to assign culpability, the fault ultimately lies on the part of everyone who was responsible for building up those social conditions, for leading things to the place that they are now.
What I suppose I want to stress here most, though, is that it's the opposition that decides the mode of protest. It's the opposition that decides the mode of protest. Let's be real. The public wants grievances to be solved peacefully. We do things like police brutality claims, and then the opposition does nothing. We kneel for the anthem, and the opposition is unfazed. We have massive Hands Up, Don't Shoot and Black Lives Matter protests all across the country. And in response, there's some talk about body cams, but by and large, things continue as they always have. And so it should be no surprise that when all the conditions that lead to rioting are created, riots occur. It's the opposition that decides the means of protest. If Derek Chauvin, George Floyd's murderer, had been fired or arrested for his previous murders, the riots wouldn't have happened. If Derek Chauvin had been promptly arrested after George Floyd's murder, the riots wouldn't have happened. As Martin Luther King Jr. famously stated, "Riots are the language of the unheard." So as long as police brutality continues in the face of complaints, so long as police brutality continues in the face of kneeling peacefully, so long as police brutality continues in the face of protests and marches, the unheard will make themselves heard through rioting. It's police brutality that must be stopped. Whew. Well, that's it for this edition of The Puppy Corner. I do like to do these every now and then. Understanding political and social reality isn't just for old pups reading theory, it's for young pups as well. I'll probably throw the previous Puppy Corner episode as an end card here, and probably my anti-cop songs video as well. I suppose that's relevant. Anyway, as always, I'd like to thank my wonderful patrons. Your tremendous support has allowed me to get dog insurance and support other creators I couldn't otherwise support, and also to provide extra funds for books and dog toys and treats and food and all kinds of great stuff like that. I really appreciate you folks a lot. Also, I'm creeping towards 20,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool, so I'll probably have patrons help me decide what to do for that. And if you like what I do here and you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/radicalreviewer. And if you're interested in radical theory, looking for a book recommendation or whatever, you can get your radical reviews here with the Radical Reviewer. Thanks for watching.